So let's transition in and we'll talk a little bit of timeline and process for you. So let's first get clear around how to start the timeline and what you're counting when you talk about the timeline. It's really hard to account for how long does it take you to get pre-approved and what are you doing in the pre-approval process. You can get pre-approved in as little as an hour or two for a basic pre-approval, so it can happen really fast. But if you need to do some work or adjust some things, it can take a little bit longer to get the pre-approval that you want to have. So we can't map to that or put a system to that on a blanket basis. We also can't account for how long is it going to take to shop and how aggressive are you going to be. We have some clients who are out looking at houses almost every day and all day on the weekend with us or on their own. They are looking to move fast. They're motivated, trying to make it happen. We can get those guys in contract in a couple days and start the clock. Other clients are moving in from out of state, looking for second homes, and their motivation isn't as high. They're looking for a really unique unicorn property. We have somebody right now that's looking for $5 million waterfront, low to mid bank within an hour of the airport, saltwater preferred. That is a pretty small target to hit. Takes a while to find those opportunities. So that is hard to map to when you're talking about the timeline. We're assuming no builder terms or land deals here that often have longer timelines to allow people to get through permitting, more inspection stuff, things like that. We're just talking a little bit more about the typical process, kind of a cookie cutter deal. We won't get into post possession in the timeline, but what that is when a seller needs a little bit of time after closing to move out of their house. Maybe they want to sell their house before they buy the new place. They'll stay post closing and maintain possession of the property. We won't cover that here. And then lastly, the timelines that we're going to be covering run concurrently in the process, meaning they all run at the same time, basically going through. So you might have three timelines happening at the same time, and they might all be different lengths of time, which will probably make more sense to you in just a second. So we start our timeline clock and setting timeline expectations from mutual, which is when you get in contract with the seller, until closing, which is a set date in the contract. Mutual is when you reach a deal. So even when you're offering and negotiating, you're still not mutual. Mutual is when you reach a deal. Most of the timelines right now are about 30 to 45 days. That's a pretty typical closing timeline. They can get out to 60, 75, but that's a little slow right now. They can get as fast as 20. That's pretty aggressive. Getting inside of 20 days on a traditional transaction is really fast. There's a lot of things that need to happen. So let's say it's a 30 to 45 day closing, which would be a set time. I'll pick 30 days for this exercise, as that's the clock. You're buying the property on the 1st. Let's say you get in contract tomorrow. You're closing on May 30th. That's a 30-day timeline. Here's how the process would work for you. The first kind of contingencies and milestones that you want to track are the basic contingencies, things like the title inspection period. That's when you get to go through stuff and look at the title report, ask the title officer any questions that you have for further clarification, get the earnest money deposited to the escrow company, and handle any inspections come up. These are the most typical contingency items. That period is usually 3 to 10 days. The little asterisk, as earnest money is usually deposited with escrow within 2 days. Then escrow holds the money as you continue to clear contingencies and move through to closing. Then they give it to the seller. That's a typical process. 3 to 10 days for these inspections. The faster you can move through these, the more competitive your offer will be. And sometimes you can't even get an inspection contingency or things like that, which I won't spend a lot of time on here, but we can get into in the question and answer period. I will be digging way more into inspection timing and waiving contingencies in structuring winning offers, the pros and cons that you need to be aware of. Then you kind of move forward to finance and appraisal as the next set of contingencies. So that's 20 days. So again, when you get in mutual on the 1st, your inspection contingency might be up on the 10th. That's that 10-day window. And then your finance and appraisal is up on the 20th. It doesn't go until the 10th on inspection, and then 20 more days for the financing contingency. It's 20 days from the start of the contract. That's when your lender is finalizing all the conditions. They're getting updated pay stubs. They're getting updated tax returns if there's any. They are verifying all the information. They need to know what property it is. They're making sure it's a property that they want to lend on. They're doing all of that stuff in that 20-day period and getting the appraisal done. Now, again, none of this is written in stone. It's real estate. Everything is negotiable. These are typical transactions, typical timelines for you to work through this process. So then at the 20 days, the lender clears all the conditions. You can waive financing. Waiving is when you say, all right, I'm waiving inspection. That means I no longer have an inspection contingency. I have no problems. I'm moving forward with the transaction. I'm waiving appraisal. The appraisal is good. I've waived the contingency. We're moving forward. I'm waiving financing. Financing is good. We're moving forward to closing. When you are waiving contingencies, a good agent should be telling you, hey, you're about to waive contingencies. This is when your earnest money is going to go hard, or what we call non-refundable. And when it's going to get really hard to get back from the seller, they should be calling that out and really checking in with you. So that's the 20-day contingency. Then you're going to move into the next stage, which is what we call docs, walk, and sig. So that is when escrow starts getting the documentation from the lender. The lender creates all the notes and deeds and all the stuff, getting the updated title documents, getting all the things they need, and coordinating those. Walking the property and getting final signatures. That is when you and the seller would sign the paperwork. This one doesn't run from the contract date. This one is based on closing and goes backwards. So, and it's not really a contingency. It's just a stage in which things happen, because people always ask about this. Like, when should I be ready to sign? Do I get to do the final walkthrough? Do I get to do this stuff? And then when does it close? Usually 1 to 3 days prior to closing is when we try to set the transactions up to have all the documents in from the lender, the signing appointments scheduled, and everything ready to go. Perfect for us. If we were closing on the 30th on a deal, we would want to do the final walkthrough around the 28th in case there is anything wrong. If the seller hasn't cleaned out the house, if something got broken, if repairs were needed and haven't been completed, we have a little bit of room to get them finished before we close. So we like to have that buffer. And then we would like to have our side, our clients signed 1 to 2 days before closing as well. So all their paperwork is done, everything is done, and we only have a couple little things left that we have to wait to happen. We don't even have to be involved in to close the transaction. That's when it actually becomes your house. And that will be on the 30th. That is the deal that is closing today. We got everything done in advance. Our buyer came into our office here and signed their paperwork yesterday. The seller signed everything yesterday. The buyer got their money to escrow yesterday. The lender gave their final clearance yesterday. So this morning, all we had to do was release to record the title transfer to the county and disperse funds, which is awesome. So we get those emails. Nobody has to do anything. There's no scrambling. That's what we like. Keep the process really stress-free. Get the email, recording numbers are in, the deal is closed, and we go meet the buyer, give them some presents, give them the keys, and let them start enjoying their new house. That's the last day.